So listen, are the Atlanta Falcons really playoff or bust for this year? Now, here's what I will say. I don't think that the Atlanta Falcons, if they don't make the playoffs this year, are going to hit a full reset. I don't think Arthur Blank is going to fire coach, GM. I don't think he's going to clean house within the organization. Okay. So maybe if that alone doesn't make them playoffs or bust, then that narrative is not part of the conversation. But here's what I do think has to happen though. Okay. The Atlanta Falcons really need to show some improvement year over year. You're stuck in this kind of quagmire of 5 seasons of not making the playoffs. Your back-to-back seasons of 7-10, right? You've got to start to get out of that quagmire. And if the Falcons are 10-7 and somehow don't make the playoffs when all is said and done, okay, I still think that's a successful season. Now, when you look at the schedule for the Atlanta Falcons, besides your divisional games, okay, they play the Green Bay Packers, they play the Minnesota Vikings, they play the Houston Texans, they play the Indianapolis Colts, they're at Chicago, at Detroit, at Jacksonville. Then you have Tennessee, at Arizona, Washington, and the New York Jets. So you have a very favorable schedule. Certainly the Cardinals are looking for a new head coach. Washington hasn't been a very good franchise. The Jets got off to a good start, but they weren't a playoff team. Detroit Lions are improving. You beat the Bears last year. The Texans are dreadful. Minnesota's not going to go, 13-0 and one-score games or whatever like that. And look, depending on, what the Packers decide to do, if Aaron Rodgers is in, he's out or whatever like that, look, it's certainly a favorable schedule. So from that standpoint, you have to take advantage of, and look, we're going to have all the money in the world, right? We're going to have all of our cap space back. You're going to have the second highest amount to spend in free agency. You've got the number 8 pick. You've got your draft picks, all in place. I definitely think that they have to be on the winning side record-wise. Even if that's 9-8 or if it's 10-7 and you don't make the playoffs, you have to show that improvement. You can't dictate. You can only dictate what you can control. You can't dictate if everybody runs wild in the NFC. But look, given the way that the NFC has looked of late, and certainly that the way the Falcons' schedule looks, you can certainly make some hay. But you have to see growth out of, if Desmond Ridder is the quarterback for this team, you have to see growth out of him. You have to see growth out of your second-year players going, rookies that were going into next year, your third-year players. You have to see jumps from those guys. You have to be a better line of scrimmage team. We talked about yesterday the fact that they've got, the thing about the San Francisco 49ers is they're the best line of scrimmage team, no matter who plays quarterback. You have to get better along the lines of scrimmage. And you have to hit in some free agency. And not just some of your top guys, if they sign a Daron Payne or somebody like that, okay? Not just hitting on those guys, but you hit on some guys last year, for all the grief that I gave them about some of the guys that we were bringing in. Rashaan Evans played well. There were guys like that stepped in and played well for this team, and even guys like Michael Pruitt. Okay. He caught 4 touchdown passes this year. He caught more touchdown passes than Kyle Pitts. Guys that contribute like that, for lack of a better term, outplay their contract. So I don't think that the Falcons are in playoff or bust mode yet. But they certainly have to be on the winning side of their record, because right now you're kind of stuck in this quagmire of 7-10, and you're not been a very good franchise of late. And look, when you're picking in the top 10, every year, and you don't get enough of those superstar players. Maybe Kyle Pitts is a unicorn. Maybe Drake London is, number one wide receiver. But those haven't been franchise-changing players yet. Well, the quarterback's got to get in the ball. Okay. But is Kyle Pitts ready to be Travis Kelce? Is Drake London ready to be Jamar Chase? Are those guys ready to make steps forward? And yes, it's certainly about the quarterback, but you have to have those guys because that's the guys we have, right? That's the guys that we're playing with. But you have to have Ebiketie develop into a legitimate pass rusher. You have to have your draft class come in and outplay their contracts. You have to have a big step for Desmond Ridder. If you're not going to be the best line of scrimmage team in the NFL, you better have Desmond Ridder play really well. You better have him take those Brock Purdy types of strides and things like that. So I don't think that it's playoff or bust because I don't think Arthur Blank is just going to wipe the slate clean if they don't make the playoffs and get rid of Terry, get rid of Arthur Smith and things like that. And certainly who they hire for their defensive coordinator will certainly be an interesting choice because I definitely, I've said last week on the podcast, I definitely want to see one of these top flight defense coordinators, these old head, these really wily guys that have an attacking style of defense to them. I want to see all of that out of our defense. I want to see our defense fly around. I want to see a top 10 defense. I would love for the Falcons to mature themselves into a top 10 defense. I don't know if that's going to happen this year, but I don't think that it's playoffs or bust just yet. I think as long as they're on the winning side of their record. Now, if they go 6-11, 7-10, then we might have to have some conversations about either Terry Fontenot or Arthur Smith and the job that they're doing. And that's why I said, the spotlight is all on Terry Fontenot. Arthur Smith has done a really good job of even getting this team to 7-10, considering how depleted his roster is, how much of one arm behind his back he's, playing with, given the roster limitations, given the financial cap situation and things like that. And Fontenot's best strength is identifying personnel, NFL caliber personnel. So there's going to be a lot of pressure to get the draft right, to certainly get free agency right with all the money that they have to spend. But I don't think that the Falcons are playoff or bust mode yet. I don't think that Arthur Blank is ready to clean house. The record, or I should say their schedule coming up is favorable, but in the NFL, you never can go by what your schedule is, right? I mean, it's not as simple as throwing darts and saying this is win, this is loss, this is win, this is loss. It's never that easy in the NFL. Teams get good, teams get bad, teams that you think, are Super Bowl contenders, all of a sudden take a big step backward. We saw it with the Rams this year, right? Rams go out and win the Super Bowl. They don't even make the playoffs this year. It happens all the time in the NFL. So the Falcons have to be on the winning side of their record, but I don't know that they're in playoff or bust mode just quite yet. All right, besides making Hittin Hard with Jon Chuckery your first listen every day, make Locked On Sports Today your second listen. Check out that podcast, biggest stories of the day, instant reactions, big game recaps, and the take of the day. It's available on Odyssey, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts from.